my brother inherited the family business and fired me, saying, "There's no place for you here." The next day, all his clients came to my new company, and his best friend was my first investor. My name is Alejandro Mendoza, and until exactly 72 hours ago, I thought I knew my family. On Monday morning, while reviewing the code for the new quantum security system I had been secretly developing for our family company, I never imagined it would be the last day I would walk those halls as an employee, as a son, as a brother, and as the legitimate heir to everything my grandfather had built. It all started with an unusual call from Diego, my older brother, at 6:47 a.m. Family meeting in the boardroom. 10 a.m. Urgent board matter. His voice had that false formality he always used when trying to hide his insecurity behind a mask of authority. I came down from my technical office on the 3rd floor, passing through the cubicles where our lifelong employees, people who had watched me grow up, greeted me with genuine smiles. "Another revolutionary system, Alex?" asked Doña Carmen, our receptionist, since my grandfather founded the company 40 years ago. I smiled, not knowing it would be the last time we would exchange those words in these hallways. The boardroom was unusually full, with a tense energy you could feel. Not only were Diego and my father there, who had supposedly retired due to health problems 6 months ago, but also the family's corporate lawyer, Mrs. Valdez, with her black leather briefcase that always foreshadowed legal storms, and 2 men in suits I didn't immediately recognize, but whose expressions screamed acquisition executives. "Alejandro," my father began, his eyes persistently avoiding mine while he fidgeted with his graduation ring. "Your brother and I, along with the board of directors, have made some strategic decisions regarding the future of Mendoza Technologies." Diego took the floor with that arrogance I found so hard to tolerate, sliding a manila envelope across the polished Brazilian mahogany table that our grandfather had personally brought from São Paulo. "The company needs aggressive restructuring to maintain our competitiveness. Your position, unfortunately, is no longer financially sustainable." I opened the envelope with hands that were beginning to tremble, not from fear, but from a contained rage boiling in my veins. "Termination due to corporate restructuring." The words danced grotesquely before my eyes. "Effective immediately. Severance. 3 months' salary." "Is this some kind of sick joke?" I asked, fixing my gaze on my father. "Dad, I've been developing the most advanced quantum security system in the industry. We're weeks away from patenting it and already have offers from 3 Fortune 500 companies." It was then that Diego dropped the first bomb, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "That system is no longer technically yours, little brother. According to your employment contract, especially clauses 7.3 to 7.8 that Dad so wisely included, everything developed during your employment is the exclusive property of Mendoza Technologies. My contract, the same one my own father had made me sign, with sweet promises of protecting my future interests and securing my legacy in the company." Now I understood, with bitter clarity, why he had insisted so much on those draconian intellectual property clauses. "Over the past 8 months, Diego continued, sliding another folder toward me, "you've been working on an unauthorized parallel project, a personal security application that clearly competes with our corporate interests. The app I developed to protect my niece Sophia after her type 1 diabetes diagnosis. That app is open source for monitoring glucose levels. I developed it after the hypoglycemic attack that almost cost her life at school." Lawyer Valdez slid another document with the coldness of someone accustomed to destroying dreams. "We've detected that you used corporate servers for its initial development. Technically, according to Clause 12.4, it's our property. Additionally, we have evidence that you shared patented information with third parties." I stood up, feeling the betrayal burning inside me like acid. "Dad, please, you know perfectly well why I developed that app. After what happened to Sophia at school, when the school monitor failed." My father finally looked up, his eyes unusually glassy, his hands trembling. "Rules are rules, son. I can't show favoritism, even if you're my own blood." It was Diego who delivered the final blow, with a triumphant smile I had never seen on him before. "And regarding your much-touted revolutionary quantum security system, we already have someone more qualified to finish it, someone with more impressive academic credentials." The door opened and in walked Dr. Klaus Richter, my former university professor. The same one who had failed me in professional ethics for questioning his authority when I discovered he was plagiarizing his students' research. "Alejandro," he said with that condescension that always made my blood boil, "I'm sorry things have to end this way. But your work shows concerning technical gaps." That's when I understood the magnitude of the conspiracy. Richter had always coveted my research on applied quantum cryptography, having tried to buy the preliminary patent from me on 3 occasions. And now, with the help of my own family, he was brazenly stealing it. "You have 30 minutes to clear out your office," Diego announced. "And according to corporate security policy, you must immediately surrender all electronic devices and access credentials." While packing my personal belongings, the photo of my deceased mother that I always kept on my desk, the mug Sophia gave me with the inscription, "World's Best Uncle," my research notebooks from years of work, I found the second bomb. Hidden between the pages of my research notes was a USB drive I didn't recognize, carefully disguised as a common keychain. When I discreetly connected it to my personal phone via an OTG adapter, I discovered it contained not only copies of emails between Diego and Richter dating back more than a year, but also suspicious bank transfers and documents suggesting they had not only been planning my forced exit for months, but were systematically diverting company funds to ghost accounts in the Cayman Islands. But the most devastating discovery was that my father had not retired voluntarily. He had been forced out after discovering that Diego had deliberately compromised our corporate cybersecurity in a clandestine deal with a Chinese company linked to the Beijing government. The third and most painful surprise came when I tried to remotely access my files on the corporate cloud. All my projects, years of research and development, had been methodically erased, with access logs pointing to my own credentials used during the weekend when I was camping with Sophia. But what they didn't know, what no one knew, is that I had a system of automatic encrypted backups on a private server in Iceland, a paranoid habit I developed after the suspicious accident that damaged my research lab last year, an incident I was now reconsidering in a completely new light. As I left the building for the last time, carrying my box of personal memories and a broken heart, I received a cryptic message from an unknown number. "Your father needs urgent help. They're blackmailing him with something about your mother. Don't trust anyone, especially Mrs. Valdez. She works for them." As I got into my car parked in my usual spot, which now had a "Reserved for Dr. Richter" sign, I saw through the polarized glass how Diego and Richter were celebrating, with expensive champagne in the corner, office that used to be my father's. And I knew, with a certainty that froze my blood, that this wasn't just corporate betrayal or a sibling power struggle. It was something much darker. Something involving family secrets I couldn't even begin to imagine. Secrets that apparently dated back to my mother's mysterious death 10 years ago. Officially an accident, but always surrounded by unanswered questions. But what they didn't know, what no one in that room knew, is that during all these years, while they thought I was just the younger brother dedicated to his codes and equations, I had been developing something more than just software and security systems. I had been quietly building my own network of contacts, my own strategic alliances in places they couldn't even imagine, and above all, I had been meticulously preparing my own version of justice, one that wouldn't answer to corporate laws or family betrayals. And the first call I made after leaving the parking lot, using a disposable phone I always kept in my car as a precaution, wasn't to a corporate lawyer or a school friend, or even my girlfriend. It was to Carlos, Diego's best friend since childhood, who had been discreetly warning me about my brother's erratic behavior and dangerous new friendships for months. "It's time," I said, using the code phrase we had established. "Activate the Phoenix Protocol." "And Carlos, do you know anything about blackmail related to my mother?" The uncomfortable silence on the other end of the line told me everything I needed to know. This went far beyond a simple struggle for control of the family business, because when your own family stabs you in the back, when your own father looks you in the eye while they allow your legacy to be destroyed, when you discover that your mother's death might be connected to all this, you only have 2 options: bleed to death or turn that treacherous metal into your own armor. And I, Alejandro Mendoza, grandson of the man who built this empire from nothing, with nothing but determination and honor, had chosen my path. A path that would lead them all back to the shadows they should never have emerged from. The game had just begun, and although they didn't know it yet, I had the head start. After all, I had written all the rules and knew every back door in the system. The rain was falling so hard that the car's windshield could barely handle it. Each drop seemed to scream, "Traitor, traitor, traitor," at me. I wasn't going to my apartment in the city's upscale area. If Diego was behind all this, as I suspected, that would be the first place they'd look for me. After driving around several times to make sure no one was following me, I arrived at El Refugio, a small, neglected motel on the outskirts that I knew from when I installed its security cameras years ago. I paid in cash for 3 nights. Room 12 smelled of old cigarettes and cheap cleaner. The sheets had small stains and the bathroom wasn't perfectly clean, but it was the perfect place to hide while I planned my next move. With hands that still trembled with rage, I connected a disposable phone, the kind sold without registration, to my laptop. I activated 5 different security programs before daring to connect to my secret files in Iceland. When I saw that all my projects were still there intact, for the first time all day I could breathe somewhat calmly. At least I had this. 8 years of research were safe, but I needed answers. Why had my own family betrayed me like this? What did they gain by destroying my career and stealing my inventions? 50 minutes later, there was a knock at the door with a secret code. 3 soft knocks, a pause, and 2 more. It was Carlos, Diego's best friend since childhood. Seeing him, I was surprised by how bad he looked, pale, with bloodshot eyes and restless hands. "Your brother is no longer the person we knew, Alex," he told me in a low voice as he sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair. "Since your dad retired, Diego has completely changed. He has meetings in the middle of the night with people who don't belong to our circle. He travels to Zurich and Shanghai without explaining why. And that German, Richter..." He paused, searching for the right words. "He's not just an ambitious professor. There's something in his eyes, something empty, as if people meant nothing to him." Carlos handed me a small black USB drive. "I copied this from Diego's private server. It's risky, I know, but after what they did to you..." When I connected the drive to my computer, the first file I opened took my breath away. It was an email from almost 10 years ago, with a short, terrifying message. "The matter of Mrs. Mendoza has been permanently resolved. We expect your cooperation in the port project." "Permanently resolved?" I repeated, feeling a chill run down my entire spine. "Carlos, this is from the month before my mom died. Does this mean that..." Carlos looked down, nervously playing with his wedding ring. "There were always rumors in the company, Alex. Whispers that your mom's accident wasn't random. That she had discovered something important about your father's business. Something about money being moved to foreign accounts." The room seemed to spin around me. Was my own father involved in what happened to Mom? The idea was so horrible I could barely breathe. I spent the next 3 hours reviewing files with Carlos looking over my shoulder. My computer program, which I called Cerberus, like the dog that guards hell, began deciphering the secret messages between Diego and Richter. What I discovered was much worse than I had imagined. It wasn't just about stealing my inventions. They wanted to use my security technology to create a backdoor in the communication systems of the entire country. Project Chimera, as they called it, would allow them to spy on governments, companies, and ordinary people. My family was helping Richter and his foreign partners build the most powerful espionage tool in history. Just then, my disposable phone vibrated on the table. A message from a number I didn't recognize. "The past holds the answers. Check sequence 7B of Sophia's diary. What you're looking for is in what was never said." My niece again? How could a 10-year-old girl be connected to all this? I immediately called Diego's house. Laura, my sister-in-law, answered. Her voice sounded cold and distant. "Alex, you shouldn't call here. Diego says you're going through a rough patch." "I just want to talk to Sophia for a second, Laura, please." After an uncomfortable pause, I heard my niece's cheerful voice. "Uncle Alex, when are you coming to play?" "I haven't seen you in so long." "Soon, sweetheart," I lied with a knot in my throat. "Hey, Sophia, do you remember the special diary I gave you for your birthday?" "The one with invisible ink and secret codes?" "Of course. It's my favorite. Grandma told me it was the best way to keep important secrets." I went completely still. "Grandma Anna? But..." "Sophia, Grandma is no longer with us. Yes, I know. But sometimes she comes in my dreams. She's very pretty. She has your same smile. Last night she told me to tell you to look where your reflection breaks, where the mirror no longer lies." When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Carlos looked at me with concern. "What's wrong, Alex?" "You look like you've seen a ghost." In a way I had. The broken mirror could only mean one thing: the silver hand mirror my mother always carried in her purse. The one I found broken, strangely broken, as if someone had hit it hard, among her belongings after the funeral. I always thought it had shattered during the car accident. But now, "Carlos," I said with a voice I didn't recognize as my own, "I need your help with one more thing. Whatever you need. Alex, after what they did to you, I'm on your side. That mirror," I continued, "must be in my dad's safe in the family house. I need to get in there tonight." Carlos's expression turned serious. "Alex, that's very dangerous. The house has the best security system that exists, the one you installed yourself." "That's exactly why I know how to beat it," I responded with a determination I didn't completely feel. "Every fortress has its weak point, and I designed this one." As Carlos left, promising to get me the updated floor plan of the house, I stared out the dirty motel window. The rain had subsided, but the storm in my heart grew with each passing minute, because now I understood that this went far beyond a family fight over a company. Someone had killed my mother. Someone was using my technology for terrible purposes, and my own family was involved up to their necks. The message from A, Sophia's dreams, Mom's broken mirror. They were all pieces of a deadly puzzle, and I was determined to put it together completely, no matter who I had to face in the process. For the first time since my firing, a cold smile formed on my lips. They thought they had defeated me, but they didn't know they had just awakened someone who had nothing left to lose. The night was my only ally. I parked my car 3 streets away from the house where I grew up, in the same neighborhood of tall trees and perfect gardens that now felt like enemy territory. Every shadow seemed to hide danger. Every streetlight illuminated a memory that had now turned bitter. Carlos had gotten me the updated security system blueprints. As I reviewed them under the dim light of my flashlight, I felt a pang of irony. I was using my own creations to defeat them. The system I installed 2 years ago was perfect, except for one detail that only I knew about. The wiring for the automatic sprinkler system ran beneath the back wall and connected to a secondary panel in the tool shed. A blind spot I had deliberately left, convinced I would never need to use it against my own family. With a frequency emitter I had built for testing, I created a loop in the motion sensors of the East Zone. I had exactly 87 seconds before the system detected the anomaly and triggered the main alarm. Slipping through the bushes like a ghost, I reached the shed. The lock was old and gave way easily. Inside, among rakes and hoses, I found the control panel. I inserted a USB drive with a special program I wrote years ago. In less than 10 seconds, I had limited access to the home network. I couldn't turn off the main alarms, but I could create a safe path to the house. Like a thief in my own home, I slipped through the library window that always had a faulty latch, something my father refused to fix out of nostalgia. The interior smelled of cleaning and abandonment. Despite the perfection of every piece of furniture, you could feel the emptiness of a broken family. I went up the stairs, avoiding the 7th step, the one that always creaked and that I'd known since childhood. My father's study was exactly as I remembered it. Perfectly organized books, the clean mahogany desk, and behind my grandfather's portrait, the Bauer safe I had personally installed. It was impossible to open without my father's fingerprint or the master code. But I remembered something he told me one night. After drinking too much whiskey, technology fails. Alex, metal doesn't. I ran my fingers along the bottom edge of the safe until I found a nearly invisible small slot. There was the physical backup key he himself had shown me. When I turned it, the door opened with a soft click. Inside, there was no money or valuable jewelry. Only documents and a small wooden chest that I immediately recognized. It was my mother's jewelry box. When I opened it, I found the silver mirror. I picked it up with trembling hands. The reflective surface was cracked in a strange pattern, as if someone had hit it with something pointed. It didn't look damaged from a car accident. Remembering Sophia's words, "Look where your reflection breaks," I examined the mirror under my flashlight. I pressed the edges, shook it gently. Nothing. Frustrated, I was about to put it away when the light reflected off one of the longer cracks. It wasn't random. It followed an almost imperceptible pattern, like a circuit drawn on the glass. With the pocket knife from my jeans, I carefully pressed the edge of the onyx base. With a soft click, the back piece came off, and there, Hidden in a secret compartment was a micro SD card. At that moment, the study lights suddenly turned on. "I knew you couldn't resist," said Mrs. Valdez's cold voice. She was standing in the doorway with a small but lethal pistol aimed directly at my chest. Beside her was one of the suited men I had seen during my firing. "Diego underestimated your stubbornness," she continued with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But I didn't. "The mirror, please." While sliding the micro SD into the seam of my jeans, I slowly took the mirror out of my pocket. "So, they are you?" I asked, buying time. "Did my mother die because of what's in this mirror?" "Your mother died because she didn't understand that in business, as in life, there are lines that shouldn't be crossed," she responded with terrifying calm. "Now we can end this civilly. Give us the mirror and the memory card, and your father won't suffer any further consequences." The blackmail. The message from A was true. They were using my father to control me. In a quick movement, I threw the mirror toward the window. The window glass in the mirror shattered with a crash that echoed throughout the house. Taking advantage of Valdez and her bodyguard's distraction, I bolted into the hallway. The main alarms went off, deafening. It wasn't part of my plan, but it was the perfect distraction. I ran downstairs, hearing Valdez's shouts behind me. "Stop him. Don't let him escape with the memory card." I jumped through the kitchen window, landing awkwardly on the wet grass. I got up quickly and ran toward the street, hoping not to encounter more guards. When I reached my car, panting and with my heart racing wildly, I found a note stuck with a magnet to the driver's door. It was a photo of Sophia leaving her school. On the back, a single word cut out from a newspaper. "Stop. They had dared to threaten my niece." A 10-year-old girl. As I started the car and sped away, I knew the war had escalated to a new and dangerous level. It was no longer just about a company or technology. It was about protecting the few loved ones I had left. And whatever was on that micro SD card had to be so important that they were willing to do anything to get it back, including harming an innocent. Sitting in the motel room, with Sophia's photo in one hand and the micro SD card in the other, I felt the world closing in around me. The threat was clear. If I kept investigating, my niece could get hurt. But if I gave up, I would not only betray my mother's memory, but also leave my family at the mercy of unscrupulous people. With trembling fingers, I connected the micro SD card to an adapter and then to my computer using 3 different security layers. What I found there took my breath away. They weren't just documents. It was my mother's digital diary, secretly recorded audio files, photos of documents, notes written with an urgency that transcended the screen. I heard her voice for the first time in 10 years, and every word was a dagger to my heart. March 28th. Emilio keeps denying it, but the numbers don't lie. Transfers to the Cayman Islands account have tripled this quarter. Where is all this money coming from? April 15th. Today I confronted Emilio about Richter. Why are we paying so much to an external consultant? He got nervous, said it was for special projects. But I saw the contract. It has no delivery dates, no clear objectives. May 2nd. I found the blueprints for Project Chimera. My God. It's not just industrial espionage. They want to create a backdoor in medical, electrical, transportation systems. This is treason at a national level. The most recent recording was from the day of her death. May 3rd, 4:30 p.m., I received an anonymous call. They say they have evidence about the accident at the laboratory where I worked 20 years ago. That if I don't stop investigating, they'll make that evidence public. Emilio is terrified. He says we must stop, that we don't know who we're dealing with. I'm going to pick up the children from school. I'll pray this is just a nightmare. My disposable phone rang, breaking the spell of pain and rage that had paralyzed me. It was my father's number, but the voice on the other end was Diego's. "It seems you don't understand the rules of the game, little brother," he said with a calm that was more terrifying than any shout. "Breaking windows, taking things that don't belong to you. Very childish. If you touch a single hair on Sophia's head..." "Sophia," he interrupted with a fake laugh. "Of course not. She's my niece, my blood. But your sister-in-law, Laura, is very worried. She thinks your erratic behavior is a bad influence on the girl. So worried that she's requested a restraining order." I felt the ground open up beneath my feet. "If you come within 500 meters of that girl, you'll go straight to jail," Diego continued. Mrs. Valdez was very persuasive with the judge. It was a master move. They didn't need to hurt Sophia physically. They just needed to separate her from me, breaking the only pure bond I had left. "What I want is simple," said Diego, his voice adopting a negotiating tone. "The memory from the mirror, and your silence. Sign these non-disclosure documents, renounce all claims to the company and intellectual property, and we'll transfer $5 million to you to start a new life in another country." This is my final offer. I knew it was a trap. Signing those documents would be signing my death warrant, but the restraining order, not being able to see Sophia again. "I need time to think about it," I said, with a voice I didn't recognize as my own. "You have 24 hours, Diego responded. "And Alex?" "Don't play with fire." "The last person who did is no longer here to talk about it." The call ended. I stared at the computer screen, where the waveform of my mother's voice had become a flat, silent line. They had the power, the company, the law on their side. I only had the truth and a memory full of ghosts. But sometimes the truth is the most explosive weapon of all. I deployed the Phoenix Protocol interface on my screen. It wasn't a hacking system like Richter and Diego probably imagined. It was something much simpler and yet more powerful. A system of forced transparency, designed to package evidence, verify its authenticity through blockchain technology, and distribute it unstoppably to a pre-established list of investigative journalists, government regulators, and intelligence agencies from 12 different countries. Once activated, it was impossible to stop. All I needed was a command. A single click. I looked at Sophia's photo on my phone, her innocent smile, her eyes full of trust. Would she be safe if I activated the protocol? Or would the shockwaves of this scandal reach her too? My father had chosen to protect the secrets of the past and had lost everything in the process. His honor, his family, possibly even the love of his life. I had to choose between protecting Sophia's future by keeping silent or exposing the truth no matter the consequences. I remembered my mother's last words in the recording. "I'll pray this is just a nightmare I can wake up from." But this wasn't a nightmare I could wake up from. It was the reality I had to live. And some realities are so dark that the only way to defeat them is with an even brighter light, even if that light burns everything in its path. My finger hovered over the enter key, hesitating between love for my niece and justice for my mother. At that moment, the disposable phone rang. A message from A. "Your father is waking up. He knows they deceived him about the laboratory. Be careful with Richter. He has orders to eliminate you if you don't accept the deal. The restraining order is fake. Laura never requested it." I looked at the Phoenix Protocol screen, then at Sophia's photo, and finally at the message from A. The score was written. But I was the one who had to decide what music its notes would play. And in the stillness of that motel room, with the weight of generations on my shoulders, I knew that some betrayals cannot be forgiven, and some truths deserve to be told, no matter the price. My finger descended,